Hey everybody, it's Trig. Driving home from work. Just sitting there thinking about some high intensity stuff that's been coming up on Iron Online, DaveDraper.com forum, and just some thoughts, kind of as they roll through my head. First thing is, thoughts on I guess equipment. People want to know about is high intensity training all about machines, or do machines not work? That type of deal, and which also somewhat ties into this the general premise that high intensity training is not sufficient for or good for things like powerlifting or strongman type training. And I'm not going to sit here and give some kind of unequivocal yes or unequivocal no or whatever, but I'll try to put some perspective on those things. First of all, when you associate, most people associate high intensity training with machines. It's almost always going to be Nautilus machines. Now, of course, Hammer Strength and MedX, come about later, but Nautilus and Arthur Jones have always pretty much, been associated with high intensity training. And when you look at what Arthur Jones was working very hard and diligently, and I would say quite successfully to do with machines, was to take the disadvantages of barbell work and remove them from exercise, so that and he did that obviously by a machine, so that very easily identifiable weak areas, or what's the word I'm looking for here, disadvantages of barbell work in terms of building muscle and strength would be eliminated. And very simply, and other people have done a far better job of explaining this than I will do. This is going to be a very haphazard attempt to explain what's going on. But if you take a, say for example, a curl, so you sat, put your back up against the wall completely, and then started with a loaded barbell, fully, arms fully extended, down there, basically, the bar resting on mid-thigh. And then, without any sort of body English or anything like that, purely with, biceps and forearms and associated muscles, did a curling motion and raised the bar up, to a full 180 degrees, to where now the bar is resting, essentially at the bottom of the neck, top of the pectoral somewhere. You call that a 180 degree movement, which it's probably, not exactly, but we'll just call it a 180 degree movement. The first, let's just say 10 to 15, maybe 20 degrees of that movement, essentially the bottom starting position, to about the first 15, 20 degrees, is basically the hardest part of that movement. It takes the most effort to get that bar going. And then the top 10, 15 degrees, essentially once you get it up, almost towards the top, almost to the top of your pectorals, there's hardly any effort associated with that at all. It's really a no effort. You could take a loaded barbell and just do this, 6 inches, 8 inches of motion all day long, and you can do that with a weight that you couldn't curl up. So, primarily by the use of a cam on the Nautilus machines, what Arthur Jones was trying to do was essentially, take a movement, and again, using the curl as an example, and with a cam and pulley system, where the power output essentially was the same from beginning all the way to end. So, as the movement got easier in terms of a barbell movement, it would start to become progressively harder with a cam and pulley system, so that power output was the same. So essentially, for lack of a better word, the lift lift felt equally hard through the entire range of motion. And it's hard to do that exactly with every kind of build or every kind of lifter. I mean, you just really can't do it 100% of the time. But Arthur Jones, again, and through the development of Nautilus, a lot of research, did a pretty fantastic job of doing that. Through all the muscle groups, and again, through that camp. So you could say, pretty, I'd say you say, with 100% honesty that, in terms of working a muscle through its range of motion, with as much muscular stimulation as you can get, a Nautilus machine typically is going to do a better job than a barbell is going to do. So it's going to, in terms of developing strength, hypertrophy, whatever it is you're seeking, for the most part, I'm not saying everything, but what most bodybuilders and most athletes are seeking, a Nautilus machine is going to do it better. Does it mean that they're a replacement? No, it's not. There's certain things that you cannot do with a machine. Typically, a lot of explosive movements, a lot of, I don't want to get in that argument about which is better, the machines or the free weights or whatever, because you can't win that argument no matter what position that you take. But certainly, in terms of producing strength and stimulating muscle growth, doing the things that are necessary, machines do it very well. Well-designed machines. Not every machine does it very well, but let's just say your typical Nautilus machine is going to do a fantastic job of that. And exercise done properly on a Nautilus machine, or MedX machine, hammer strength machines, things like that. You're gonna do what needs to be done. The issue always comes up. Well, you can't train a power lifter on a Nautilus machine or whatever, and you can. You just can't train specifically power lifts on a Nautilus machine. But if you look back at the history of Nautilus, you look back at what sort of physiques were built at and by Nautilus, by Arthur Jones, high intensity training, using not exclusively, but certainly primarily Nautilus machines, and the barbells and dumbbells or whatever. You got Casey Viator, you got Boyer Coe, you got Sergio Olivia, you got the Mincer brothers. Go on and on. People with very much top level Mr. Olympia caliber, muscularity, build, strength, whatever you want to call it. So certainly something's going on there. And then you look at the athletic realm, particularly, you start with the Miami Dolphins, and then you can just go all the way up into whatever, Dr. Ken's doing these days, and everything in between. You got guys like Kim Woods, Dan Riley, Ken Manny, you got a lot of people out there doing athletic-based training, high-intensity training methods, and building incredibly powerful and strong and capable athletes. So, people want to take one narrow sort of measurement or parameter of strength and power, and we're going to call that powerlifting, a barbell squat, barbell bench press, and barbell deadlift, and say because Nautilus machines can't duplicate those things, they're not effective. And that's ludicrous and basically silly. Certainly you can't take a Nautilus leg press or leg machine and call it a barbell squat. I've made the statement before that neither bodybuilders or other strength athletes are necessarily doing that. It's not really necessary. It's not a parameter. It's not a measure that they're particularly interested in terms of a 1 rep max. That's a powerlifting deal, and there's nothing wrong with powerlifting. I mean, it's not not slamming powerlifting. I'm just kind of waving my fingers at that argument that a lot of people will utilize, and certainly if you're going to powerlift, you're going to need to spend some serious time in doing relatively low repetition work and lots of sets of it, with your 3 power lifts, and that's just a facet of that training. It's not a statement that says that Nautilus machines or any other machine work can't be part of that. It's just understanding what it is you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish it. So, don't confuse yourself, or don't let yourself be confused or convinced that there's guys in gyms everywhere that are bodybuilding. Guys like, let's just take Dorian Yates, fantastic example. Dorian Yates in his prime, certainly using what you would call a high intensity approach to bodybuilding, and that was one strong dude. Could he have won? Would he have been a top level power lifter? Probably not on the national level. Could he have walked into a state meet and probably blown everybody away? Just based upon, absolutely he could have. So you got to kind of think about, you just got to put things in perspective. So. Then we kind of move into what sort of exercises, or sets and things like that. High intensity training is not, it's not one set to failure. Done, once every 6 days. And if your liver, is sore, the day before you're supposed to train again, you put it off for 3 days. That all came about when Mike Mentzer, I guess, went off the deep end. God rest his soul. I mean, he was a fantastic bodybuilder, but he had some issues in the end, and I don't know what was going on, but he came out with that consolidation routine, and a lot of lazy people grabbed a hold of that and figured, that was the ticket to muscularity without having to work for it. But, high intensity training is it's a pretty expansive deal, but it's not limited to anything, I guess, really. But your ability to apply it. Multiple sets of exercises. Working. Full body routines. Working. Split routines. Sets to failure. Things. Rest pause. Using chains and bands. All that kind of stuff. All fit very, very well in high intensity training, and are utilized by high intensity trainees and trainers and coaches out there. This time frame I'm trying to spend right here is not really conducive to exploring that a whole lot in depth. But a guy with a squat rack and a 300-pound barbell set can do some high intensity training. And do some really fantastic and wonderful high intensity training. Asking a guy with access to every machine, every dumbbell, every piece of equipment. I mean, it's not limited or defined by some sort of equipment. So that's just some thoughts. It's kind of rambling. I probably repeated myself or left something out important, but it's kind of where I'll leave it today. But I guess primarily, kind of going back to maybe where I started, just putting it all some sort of a summary, is you look at just some really name brand high intensity training physiques and athletes and bodybuilders, and you will see some incredibly strong, fantastically strong, very large, muscular individuals who are known top level guys. Not just some random guys you never heard of, but guys that were Mr. Olympia winners. You look at Mike Mentzer. Mike Mentzer probably should have won. That was the 1980 Mr. Olympia that Arnold Schwarzenegger had given to him. But certainly, of course, you got Casey Vitter and like I said, Boyer Cove, Sergio. Sergio is an animal. fantastic physique. That's high intensity training. You know, that's what high intensity training can produce when properly applied. So don't let the the powerlifting police sway you away from it. I'll talk to you later.